Welcome to this episode. Today I have another interview guest who is Jess Carr, originally from Australia and now lives in Singapore. I'm super excited. We are speaking about becoming an effortless achiever. Hello and welcome to the Successful, Sensitive and Intuitive Entrepreneur podcast. My name is Lydia Sophia Wilmsen and I am an intuitive success mentor for sensitive entrepreneurs. In this podcast, I speak about the challenges sensitive and intuitive entrepreneurs face. I offer you new perspectives and solutions, as well as experiences of other entrepreneurs. Plus, I speak about my personal experience of being a highly sensitive person who has successfully built and scaled 2 businesses. All of that with the goal to make you and your business even more successful in your very unique and authentic way. Have fun and enjoy. So please introduce yourself, dear Jess.
Thank you, Lydia. It's a real pleasure to be here as new friends and to kind of share my bit of my journey with you. So I guess my story is probably a little bit different to some of the things that you normally talk about, in that I'm in corporate and a leader of a team across Asia Pacific in the corporate world. And my whole career thus far has been in the corporate world. So I guess a little bit of a quick snapshot to bring you up to where we are today. But I actually finished high school, then went to university in Australia, and I studied interior design and architecture.
Nice.
And then from there, I have actually had a bit of a varied career, and I've moved from working in architecture to working in interior design to working for a furniture company. And now I work for a global facility management company. But what my specialty really is in workplace design, but more workplace strategy. And really trying to, I guess right now, as we are, a lot of companies are in flux and trying to figure out what should the new world of work look like, and how much should people work from home, how much should they work in the office. And I do that in a global team, but I manage the Asia Pacific part of the business of that. So that's, I guess, a little bit of my career journey. And and so that's landed me in Singapore. So I moved to Singapore about 5 years ago with that kind of career journey to land where I am here today.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I didn't know this about the interior design and architecture. I just moved places, so perhaps later on I can give you a tour and say, like, what should I do? No, I'm just joking. So yeah, you're in corporate and you already mentioned a bit that you still have a very entrepreneurial role in there. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? What does this mean? Because it's so funny. Like, let me just say something about that. It's so funny because we usually divide into like, that's corporate and that's business. But actually, there is also lots of similar mindsets in there, especially in roles like you have. Like, we only focus on, that's a very different mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, and this is corporate mindset. So I think it will be super interesting to hear from you today how they actually fit together as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a question that I think my whole career I've been slowly chipping away at trying to answer. So at the moment, what I do is I'm the managing director for a workplace consultancy group across APAC. And that is what we call a corp up, which is really just corporate jargon for a startup within the corporate world. So it's really bringing that kind of entrepreneurial mindset to the corporate world and to big, your big, slow organizations. It's a way of kind of bringing in that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, that kind of hustler mindset into, create something new and different for them and really get that kind of going. Interestingly, on my journey, and as I said, I started in interior design and architecture. I've had this kind of journey where I've been trying to get closer to the person. So I started in architecture. I moved into interior design. I moved to furniture to really understand that kind of micro about how corporate, commercial office furniture actually interacts with persons. And within that organization, I built the first business club lounge in Australia of its kind. And I built the whole business behind it and working out how we were actually going to bring this idea to life. And I think that was my first real foray into being entrepreneurial in a large corporate. And then from there, I kind of went, well, this is what I like to do. And coming from architecture, I like to build things. So I went from there to then into the workplace strategy and helping clients kind of figure out, how they needed their workplace to look, the right numbers of people and, the right types of spaces to support the type of work that they wanted to do. And that was really, starting to get closer and closer to the people. And now in the role that I'm in now, it's again back to building a business. And so for me, it comes back to that same architecture thing of building something, but also doing it in a way that's really connected towards people. And I think in the future, what my next move is going to be is actually going to be building my own businesses and again, coming around kind of helping individuals really align to who they really are and kind of create what it is that they want to create. I don't have any concreteness around what exactly that is at this point in time, but I can kind of feel that that's kind of in the next 5 years, that'll be the next kind of career trajectory and shift for me.
Yeah, sounds super interesting. And you obviously now have so many skills just from working in business and in big corporate businesses. This will help you massively, I guess, in creating your own business with all this background knowledge. I would be interested a little bit because you said hustle culture, you mentioned that word, and I basically stand for helping business owners not creating hustle and, the rat race, and instead, how can you create massive income, massive purpose and impact in the world, however, with, massive achievement, but with lots of time for yourself and lots of freedom, lots of quiet time. So I'm helping business owners who have all the freedom for themselves to do that, but you're working in corporate and you help them there to become effortless and stay achievers, but have this more quietness or this more relaxedness about them. How do you do that there? I see this as even more challenging.
Yeah. So, I guess if I go back to my journey and my story, when I was, as with all of these things, I think it always starts with your own personal journey. But when I went from architecture to interior design, and then I ended up working for this furniture company. The first thing is, there's a lot of what I call grace or luck in life that I don't believe is entirely per chance. I do very much believe that we do create our own future and our own way of the world and opportunities coming to us. But at the time, I had absolutely no idea how it was. So it was through a chance conversation and through a lunch that I ended up finding out about this job to go work for this furniture company. And so I just went on this ride, and it seemed like the most exciting thing to do, to move cities, to go and take this new job. I didn't really know what it was that I was going to be doing when I got there, but it felt like the right thing to do. And it my inner being, if you like, really was just like, you need to go and you need to follow this particular path. So I did. And off I went, and I moved from one city to another city in Australia. And as throughout that journey, it was huge growth for me. And I noticed that I didn't kind of keep up to speed with the growth that was happening. And so inside, I was starting to feel a lot of anxiety, and I was starting to feel quite overwhelmed by the task that was ahead of me, because I felt like I wasn't qualified, or I didn't know enough. Or when I like to take leaps and jumps, I tend to take quite large leaps and jumps. And I'm excited to go there, and my inner being is drawing me into these situations. But once I get there, I sort of start to feel like maybe I don't deserve to be here, or maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I don't really know what I'm doing. And this kind of track that was going on in my head really started, this was about 10 years ago when I had made that leap to go and move to Sydney to work for this company. And then the opportunity to create this business club lounge came up, and I was so excited about it. And I really threw myself in 110% into trying to make this thing work and trying to understand how to make it work, and really wanting it so desperately to be a success that I burnt out. Like I would just completely, I ended up disconnecting myself from the support network around me, and I started to go inwards, and I started to, probably fall into a little bit of a depression. But it was just because every day I felt completely out of my depth, completely overwhelmed, and didn't know how to ask for help, didn't know how to deal with it, didn't know how to really try and put some perspective around what I was actually going through at the time.
Yeah.
that was the start for me of really starting to do some inner work and looking for the answers. I started going and doing some, personal development courses and, some coaching. I had some coaching courses and ended up learning quite a few significant tools that really helped me start to kind of shift those mindsets. And I'd like to say that, and then I was fixed and it was wonderful, but that's not how it happened. I ended up burning out and having to leave the corporate world. But I'll just tell you the little story about how that happened, because it's actually quite a beautiful story. And a friend of mine tells me to this day it's something that kind of sticks with her. But so my friend was in town and we went out for dinner and she worked with me at that point in time. And I was just saying to her, look, I feel really overwhelmed. I feel really kind of burnt out. I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to fix this, all this sort of stuff. And she said to me, we were sitting in a restaurant. She was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I said, look, I think I need to go on a 6-week holiday, like take a good chunk of time to just go and reset myself. And so anyway, we go into this restaurant and we're sitting down and I said, I want to take this 6 weeks or whatever. And she goes, oh, okay. And what are you going to do? Like, as in, what are you going to do on your 6-week holiday? And I went into this existential crisis. I'm sitting there and I started hyperventilating and broke down. And I was just like, I don't know. I was having this complete freak out in the middle of this restaurant. And it was an incredible experience, very visceral to this day, because I could actually feel like I was splitting in two. And I could hear this entirely separate voice in the back of my head that was so calm and so clear. And it wasn't my friend. She was sitting there next to me going, oh shit, what are we going to do? And I'm sitting there and like outwardly, I'm just like, I don't know. Okay. And I got myself together enough to get out my wallet, pay, and so that we could leave the restaurant. But inside, this voice is just going, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Take a few deep breaths, pay the man, walk outside. You'll be fine. Like, there's just real, and it was my voice, but it was just really calm, while outwardly I'm like, freaking out. Yeah. Anyway, we leave the restaurant and we go down. We're sitting on Bondi Beach in Sydney. And we're sitting down on Bondi Beach, and bless my friend, she just sat with me and she said, put your hands in the sand. Just relax. She talked me through a whole relaxing sequence. She said, listen to the ocean. And then she just started to say, like, what do you hear? What do you smell? And all I could say to her was love and freedom and all of these kind of feelings that I could feel from the ocean and I could feel from the sand because I was incredibly grounded in that moment. And then she said, okay, now that you're calm, what are you going to do? And I went, I have to go. I have to leave. And not in a 6-week kind of way, but in a, I'm done here. My work is done here. And I have other things that I need to go and do. And part of the project was only 98%, or let's say 95% complete. And so there was this whole part of me that was like, I can't leave this. It's my baby. I've been working on it for the last 2 years. It's really important. I'll let everybody down. Like, all of this kind of, now I realize, very unhelpful chatter was going through my mind. And just in that one split-second moment, when I was true to myself and true to what I really needed to do, the energy that flowed through me was just incredible. And I got up and I started doing cartwheels down the beach, and I went, oh my God, I'm one of those crazy people that have absolutely lost it. But it was just this really divine moment where I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was making the right decision for me. And all of that, I should do this, or I should do that, or I'm letting people down, or all this external chatter just disappeared because I'd made a decision that was right for me. And that really was the catalyst, I think, in my journey to start to understand that I need to find a way to tap into that and to tap into finding a way to be able to achieve things, but not do it in a way that's going to be overwhelming. And because I get into a state that's not helpful for the business, it's not helpful for me. So, really needing to let that go.
What a beautiful story, and also like goosebump story. Like this, it really sounds like an awakening story or something where, it's difficult to say what brought it to you, like how did it happen? Why did it happen to you? What was that? It's probably, we will never know.
I've thought a lot about that moment. Knowing what I know today, And looking back on that moment, I've thought a lot about what actually made that moment come about. Yeah. And two things. One, my friend got me calm enough to actually be able to listen to myself. And I allowed what I really, truly, desperately wanted and felt. I allowed that to come through. Yeah. And I allowed that to be voiced, and I allowed that to be okay. And then as swiftly as you could, my friend said, that's fine, I'll support you. She goes, I will go and have the conversation with our boss, so you don't have to have the conversation, because that's what I said to her. I don't think that I could have that conversation. And so she supported me to make that change happen. And I'm not kidding. In a week, I was gone. I packed up my house and everything. And I'd said that I was coming back in 2 months, but I knew that I wasn't. And I knew that in that moment. So another little bit of fun side for this story is I actually then went back to my hometown. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, am I going to get another job? Like, I'm burnt out. Like, what am I going to do? And I used all of the tools that I had learned about calming down and really kind of listening to myself and just being okay with it and just allowing whatever was going to come through to come through. And I ended up meeting my husband. And it was another one of these complete divine moments. Like I was like, I'm the woman who married a scuba diving instructor, and it's been the most blissful 7 years since. And now we've got 3 beautiful children, and we live in Singapore. And it was a divine moment. And I've then been searching since these moments. I've been searching for, how was I a player in those divine moments to come through, and how can I have more of those divine moments throughout life? But also, how can I function? I keep going back into the corporate world. And so how can I continue to keep functioning with your everyday stresses and your everyday things, and do it in an optimal way and achieve things without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of gold there. And I would like to summarize a little bit with you again what you already mentioned, and perhaps what else is there. Like this bringing about those moments. You said, I too am a firm believer now that we do create our reality, that we are, how did you say it, like divine players, or we support the divine, or we co-create, or whatever we want to say. And you mentioned that you gave up resistance somehow, so you stepped into allowing. And you said basically the grounding effect, like just whatever, ground, visceral feelings, like go into feeling your body, the embodiment stuff. And now, like, what else? What else is there? Are those the main ingredients, especially for people who so long for that, Like, of course, my clients, I teach them lots of stuff, how to do that. And just the people who listen to the podcast and think like, yeah, but how do I do that? What would be, looking back now, and also how you apply it in your day-to-day life, as you already said, in corporate now, what would be main factors that you can give as kind of tips to people to step more in that?
Absolutely. I'll just take you on just a little bit further forward in that kind of timeline, because I think from there, that was the beginning of the questioning, and there is something bigger at play here. And how do I be a part of that? So then what happened, I had my first baby with my new husband, and I wanted to go back to work. I then learnt and believe that I'm a better mother because I work. And that's a really big thing for me. I'm an advocate of mothers that want to work. It's really important. It's part of our own kind of health. And so that was part of my learning as well. I had to kind of learn that. And then an opportunity, again, just arise to come to Singapore. And again, it was another one of these divine moments, which was, okay, within 24 hours, we negotiated the package and we were off. We were packing bags and getting ready to move my entire life and my husband and my new baby to Singapore, which is a country I had visited once, but I had never worked here. I'd never, so again, it was another one of these really big leaps that I was taking. But again, within me, my inner being was saying, you've got to go. Like, this is exciting, right? So, but then when I landed, within 2 weeks, my boss, who I'd come to go work with, left. And then half my team left. And then I sat there looking around just going, I don't know what I'm doing. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I've moved my family not halfway around the world. Actually, yeah, halfway across the world. And now I'm sitting here and I don't know what I'm doing every day, and I feel overwhelmed again. And so then this started the cycle again. And so then I've spent the next 2 years. So I did that for 18 months, 2 years. And then again, the call came from my inner being with another job opportunity to jump again another level. And so I took that. And so I jump in deep end again. And again, the overwhelm started to come back. And this real, like, to the point, like, Lydia, just to paint this picture for you, I remember spending an hour fussing over how to write an email to a client about nothing. It wasn't a thing about billing or contract or, needing to change something quite significant. It was just like hey, here's the report I promised last week. And I was fussing over the right way of right. And I just went, this has got to stop. And inside, I was waking up in cold sweats when I would wake up in the morning, just going, I don't know what I'm doing. The client's going to think this is stupid. They're going to hate me. I'm going to ruin everything. This is what was going on for me. And you can imagine all of the hard work and effort that I was having to put into my day-to-day work to actually compensate that. And I think if you ask people around me that were working with me at the time, they would say, yeah, we would see glimpses of a bit of a stress, Jess, but I mean, everyone gets stressed from time to time, but I was stressed all of the time and I was waking up every night. I just went, this is ridiculous. I've got to find a better way. And so through that, what I actually ended up discovering was what I call the 5 steps to effortless achieving.
Tell us more.
Because I know it's a long-winded story to kind of get here, but I think it's really important to kind of talk about the divine moments that I'd experienced. And so I had this real, I'm going to call it a 2-speed experience where my inner being's like charging ahead. And then my outer Jess is just going, oh, I can't catch up. I just, I'm panicking about writing a freaking email and I'm spending an hour trying to fuss over the sentence structure of something that does not matter. And you just and this inner turmoil, right? And I was just like, so what I've realized is there are a couple of things. One, the perfectionism and control needs to go. You need to find ways to trust and allow not only in your own ability, but in the universe's ability to deliver as well. So I spent a lot of time looking at control and looking at achievement and achievement connected to my own self-worth. So I actually ended up divorcing myself from the need, that achievement was tied to my self-worth. I still love achieving because I love building things. I love seeing the fruits of my labor, as it would be. But it just does not need to be nearly as hard as it is. And if I don't achieve that thing, I'm still a worthy person.
I love that.
And that, I think, is one of the major fundamental things that I did. And I guess just to talk about my 5 steps to achieving, there was a process that I went through to actually get there. And the first thing that I noticed is when my head starts running is to just take the pressure off. That's the very, very first thing to do. And take the pressure off emotionally, take the pressure off mentally, take the pressure off physically, whatever it needs to be. So if I want to take the pressure off mentally, it'll be things like, talking to myself about, I'm doing a good job, I'm doing the best that I can, like really just checking in with how mean am I being to myself? Like how hard on myself am I actually being about this thing? And getting a little bit of perspective around that. Physically, it could just be things like, I can't think about this right now, so I'm going to push out a deadline. Or I'm going to look at my calendar and pick the couple of meetings that I don't actually need to attend or they're not mission critical for today. So what can I actually push out to tomorrow? Yeah. And so I do that. So you get a day where you can get some headspace back so that you can start to change the mental way. And then the emotional stuff is really, there's a lot of processes, and I'm sure you teach your coaching clients this, but just the energy processes, like trying to understand, so where is the feeling in my body? Where is the pressure? Is it in my chest? Is it in my shoulder? If it had a color, what color would I make it? If it was, if it had texture, what texture would it have? And then really just kind of focusing on moving that out. And that's just like, for me, that was the first step. And then going, and as Abraham Hicks talks about, going general. And really then once you can start to get a little bit of pressure, starting to, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally, then you can start to go a bit general and say, well, things are always working out for me. Life is long. No matter what everyone tells you, everything has to be done by tomorrow. It's like, no, life is long. This may fail, it may not, and that's okay. Like I'm sure I can figure this out. I'm smart and I've got connections and I can, together we can work things out. And so, that was kind of, I think, one of the biggest things is once I kind of mastered being able to do that, I started to have the capability to be able to step back and say, right, what is really going on here? And not making decisions from not making decisions. Yeah, from a low point. Like quite a number of times when I've been completely overwhelmed, I want to run away, right? Like I want to just cut and run like I did in Sydney. And I'm like, that's not going to work anymore, like that's not the healthy way to do it. And so I just made a deal with myself that I don't make life-changing decisions when I'm in a bad mood.
Love that.
So we have to do the take the pressure off. And then from there, with a clear head, start to look at sort of what the next steps forward are.
That would be two then. Point number 2.
Yeah. So, step 2 is then really starting to kind of step back and have a little bit of a look and get a better perspective on what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then, step 3, then once you've actually got a little bit of perspective is to start to look at, well, what's in your way? So what was it that I was freaking out about? So once you've got the breather room and you can step back and you can say, okay, well, what's the big vision going on here? Well, and then you start asking, sorry, I'm still at step 2. Don't want to confuse everybody. But still at step 2, you're sitting there and you're there going, okay, well, what do I want the future to look like? What are the questions that I want to ask myself? Am I still doing the right thing that I want to be doing right now? And if your inner being can start talking to you and you allow it to talk to you, which is, yes, you are doing the right thing. Yes, you are, in the right place, etc. Then you can start to, you write down the things you kind of know and what the vision that you're trying to kind of convey is. Then in your step 3, you really go, okay, well, what's in the way? What are the things that are holding me back? So what were all of the conversations that I was having with myself as I was falling into overwhelm? Like, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. I don't have enough help. If I don't achieve this thing, and this was a big one, is if I don't achieve this thing, am I worth anything? Is my only worth, if I achieve this? And so I really started to look into that and break the cords, if you like, around those perspectives and really started to shift the perspectives around the way that I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think, often what people forget. How can I escape the situation? Not understanding as long as those cords are still together and not divorced, so to say, as you said before, you will just recreate the same situation. So it's so important to actually get to this point. But you have, as you said already, you first have to be in a mentally, emotionally, and physically better space to actually do that work. Like when you're totally out, totally done, you also can't do like that kind of heavy work. You need to be in a better space, and then you can look at those things and dissolve them, release them. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. And that for me is the key thing. Even today, whilst I don't have, so here's hope for people. For all of that constant anxiety that I used to feel, I don't have that anymore. Even though there's things that are stressful that are going on at work and that, I don't wake up in the middle of the night going, for what seemingly is no reason, but I just don't have that visceral reaction anymore. It's just not in my system anymore. And that's amazing because it allows me to really approach new challenges with ease, So it's not effortless achieving it's effortless. It's not effort none, I still have to action things and I still have to go and do things. But what's really interesting is every time you level up, you're going to have a new set of challenges that are holding you down. But what I don't have anymore is the anxiety about that. Yeah. I don't have that kind of crippling, I want to hide under the covers every day instead of getting up and putting on my big girl pants and going to work,
And that's also such an important point because so many people are looking for, I don't want to have problems anymore at all. I don't want to have challenges anymore. They think a life of ease means, I don't know, that you're just those early pictures of paradise. You're not moving anymore. People put food into your mouth, but who wants that? We want to do things. We want to move our bodies. So it's not about nothing happening in your life anymore. It's more, as you said, the anxiety is gone and the feelings around, oh my goodness, I can't do this. I'm not worthy. And all of that shit is gone. And that is so important to make this difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the work, as they call it, around really examining your beliefs and examining your identity. It's really interesting. Just even recently, as a level up for me, is that I changed my haircut, and it's something I wanted to do, And it was something simple. And I had a very similar haircut before. So like people on the outside are like, what are you talking about? Your haircut was almost the same. But for me, it was really symbolic. It was really something that was representative of me. And I work in corporate, and I've had shaved sides of my head, and now I've got this pixie cut that's blonde and, it's peroxided out. And my husband told me that this haircut is actually probably more conventional than my undercut that I had before. But for me, I think this was bright and bold and really stood out. And I'm also a white lady in Asia. So I also stand out because of that. And I'm loud in my personality. Mm. So, that identity shift, on the outside, it would have looked like that was really easy for me to make. Mm. But it wasn't, because for me, it was about doing something that I really wanted to do and not caring about what someone on the outside would think. But for me to catch up with that identity shift, it was a significant kind of change. And if at the basis of all permanent change, you need to change your identity. You can change your beliefs. As you said before, you can change your environment, but take beliefs with you.
Yes. If
you change your beliefs, then you're getting halfway there. But if you change your identity, you live it. You know it in your bones. Yeah. And so that's, for me, is part of the 5 steps of effortless achieving is what you really want to get to. You want to get to a space with whatever it is that you want to achieve, that you know that thing is going to come to pass, whether you fail along the way, whether you deviate, whether you take different paths, that ultimately you know that this in your bones, that this is the right thing to do, and it's going to come to pass. And I think going back to the story about when I met my husband. So I've just had a breakdown. I've come home to my hometown. I'm hanging out with my dad, living at his place. I wasn't there very long, and then I met my now husband. Everybody had thought I'd gone completely mad. They were like, "You've just had this mental breakdown, and now you've met this guy, and you're going to move in with him and have a baby with him. Like, what? You've completely lost. Yeah, you completely lost your mind." But I can tell you what, it was one of the few decisions in my life. There is no amount of talking me out of it. I absolutely knew with 100% of my body and my soul that it was right for me, and nobody at all could talk me out of that. And that's one of these really kind of key things to effortless achieving, is to figure out how to talk to your inner being that you absolutely know what that outcome is. And you can still have resistance to the idea. So this is where your beliefs come, it's like, maybe I couldn't do that. Or maybe, and if you work at those beliefs, all of a sudden you'll click into the place where you're just like, I absolutely know that that's for me.
Yeah, love that. Okay, and then number 5?
Well, it's just to continually allow it, and to really, that thing of, you're always going to grow. And as you said before, you're going to come up against things that you might not think that you can do, and that you will have beliefs about, I can't do it. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough, time, whatever it might be. I'm not smart enough, like whatever, it might fail. But if you change those perspectives and you have a little bit of faith in the grace of the universe, and once no one can talk you off your game. People can tell you it's a bad idea, but if you know it's right for you, it will work out, and it will be the right thing for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that. How would you phrase this, or what would you say to people? Because I totally understand where you're coming from. Like, major life decisions were exactly that, as you said, like full knowing this is it, even though some of those things were even kind of crazy to me, or kind of like, what's going on, but I just followed through. And for people who don't trust themselves as much, where they easily get or have other people get in their way, or they don't even know, like, is this my inner voice speaking? What is this? What would you say to those people who don't have this crazy trust and inner knowingness, or haven't gotten there yet? What would you tell them?
I didn't always have it. I'm very analytical, and I'm very logical minded, and it's just like, what do you mean trust your inner being? It's like, no, I've got to be in control, right? It's a process. It really and truly, there are lots of ways to do it. Journaling for me is the way that I speak to my inner being. So I can, and it's after a couple of years, that I can actually discern the difference between when I'm talking and when my inner being's talking. And I've learnt the subtlety of knowing when something's right for me versus thinking that it's a way out, and thinking, oh, that's the right decision because it's a way out, right? And again, I come back to one hint: don't make life-changing decisions when you're in a bad mood.
Yeah.
So I know for some people they go, I've had enough, that's the end of it. And then they walk out, and then my life was better from then on out. Maybe, but maybe it was when you actually got out that you had the space and the time to calm down and get into a good space. And then you went, right, what am I going to build from here on out? And that was the point that was positive. And that was the point where you were doing the right thing by your inner being. For me, yeah, so I think that was the kind of really important is you've just got to listen and you got to sit quietly and you have to give yourself the time and the space to be able to do it. I mean, I'm a mum of 3 babies and I'm in a corporate career and, life is busy and I don't have a lot of time and stuff, but I make the time, I take that 15 minutes before I go to bed and sit and journal just so I can listen to myself. And I tell you what, the days when I don't do it, I know. I've got kids coming in and waking me up at stupid o'clock in the morning, and so I don't have time to do it in the morning, but I know that at nighttime that there is that little 15-minute window that is mine and mine alone. So.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think this is a very different episode because today it's more about really sharing your experience and sharing like different steps in your journey. And this gives so much value to others to, I think, find themselves in parts of your journey, because we have all, like many of us have been there in burnout and having some kind of awakening moments in times when we didn't expect it at all, or also this part where you said like wanting to have control, and it's actually the opposite. Like once you manage, and this is why I think actually those breakdown moments for many people are actually the change. Some people or many of us, we almost need this, because otherwise we would never get out of this, like functioning mode. And we actually we need our bodies and our mind and our emotions like to collapse in order to come to that point where we surrender. We can't do anymore. Our body doesn't get up, like it doesn't work anymore. And this very often for people actually is a lifeline. So just talking to you today, I think burnout for people, even though it's horrible, for many people it might, if they take the chance, be actually a way to change to a better life.
The one thing I'd add to that is that particularly when I was going through a lot of, falling into that dark spiral, the phrase of sometimes things need to fall apart to be built back better always rang through for me. So even in my moments of going, but it'll all fall apart if I let it go, like that, trying to control every little aspect of things, sometimes things need to fall apart to be built back. So, that's something to definitely think about.
Yeah, I love that. And perhaps the last thought for today, because there was so much value in there already. Obviously, you are in a different, like in corporate, so you don't have probably as much input or like on your financial settings. You have the money you get and all of that. So it's not similar to being an entrepreneur where you create your financial reality. However, you have made big leaps and you also want to go perhaps at some point full entrepreneurial yourself. What can you say when it comes to finances? And you have made big steps. You moved your whole family to a different country. Can you give us anything around financial mindset with this idea of effortless achieving?
So, while in the corporate, for me personally, it's a take-home salary with bonus, right? So I still have to achieve what I need to get my bonuses. However, part of my role is business development and making sure that we're getting enough consulting projects to actually come in. So even around that, that's trying to win work, and that's it's very similar. Yeah. What I would say is that I'm very clear about the number, and I'm very clear about what needs to be done to get the number, but what the number is, and then what I guess the work looks like that matches the number, particularly in what I'm talking about, right? So I know what a $40,000 consulting mission looks like. I know what a $100,000 consulting mission looks like. Mm-hmm. And then, honestly, it's really about looking at what scares me about that. What scares me about more clients coming in? Oh, it's going to be the same things. Who's going to deliver it? What time frame are we going to be able to deliver it in? Are we going to do a good job for the client? Are they going to be satisfied? Are they going to be a good client? All those things. So you go and you belief tree or, the different processes that you have to actually go and change your perspective on each of those beliefs. And that's where the effortless comes in, because the effort that's involved, I could do two things. One, I could go out and I could door knock every client trying to find work and trying to get work. And I could put all the hard work and action effort into doing that. Or I could do the inner work first and go and spend a day or so going through, figuring out what we want to achieve, going through and invalidating and changing the perspectives on all of those things to make it feel effortless. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to talk to each of these clients, not with desperation, but I'm going to talk to them with excitement and about helping them to solve their problem, because I'm not scared if we win the project that we're going to fail, or that I'm not going to have the people to do it, etc. So we go through that, and that's how the work comes flooding in.
Oh, I love that. It's super interesting, because I wasn't sure if to even mention this question, and that's a beautiful insight knowledge from a different branch that applies so well, perfectly. It applies perfectly to business owners. So thank you. Super cool. Any last tips, any last things you want to share with us today, dear Jess?
Look, I think it's incredibly important that if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling like you're heading towards burnout, that the very first thing that you do is to take the pressure off. Find both emotionally, physically, and mentally. From there, you can start to have access to the part of you that has a bigger vision and that can help you find the solutions to whatever it is that you're facing. And then it's having the courage, after you've got that clarity, is having the courage to really look at, well, what are the beliefs or what are the perspectives that I have that make this feel like hard work? Is it that I think hard work is equated to achieving, which is therefore equated to my self-worth? Do I need to break down those connections and those perspectives so that work can be enjoyable and not hard work? So, ultimately that's what effortless achieving is about, is removing those things that are in the way so that it feels exciting and you can go after that big dream that you have, and that your inner being is knocking on your door trying to kind of call out of you.
Love that. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, and we will talk another time perhaps.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Did you like this podcast episode? Then I would be super, super grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Super helpful. And please subscribe to the podcast and share it with people who you know can benefit from it. You can find all links to my social media profiles, my website, and contact form in the show notes. And whenever you're ready to take a next step, and that means you want to live a life of more on all levels, then send me a message with where you want to go and what is keeping you where you are, like what keeps you stuck at the moment. And then I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode, much love to you, Lydia.